Hey guys, welcome to the weathering stage of the Tamiya Panzer IV, the Ausf, G, still hard to say, early production, where we are starting with a pin wash. Now this is it's like the specific DAC pin wash for, dark brown or light brown or dark yellow vehicles. You could use anything. It's just, this one's like a little reddish, but you could use black. Um, in looking at a lot of the washes I had during this build, and I've had this thought basically during every weathering stage, but a lot of the washes are the same, but they're labeled different things, and we buy all of them, right? But what I'm first doing is accentuating panel lines, recessed areas, hinges, bolts, really everything on this kit. And what I really wanted to do, I did 2 rounds of pin wash. Let them dry for about, call it an overnight. So I don't know, is that like 12 hours, right? Once once you get past the 24-hour mark, it can be a little hard to wipe away your wash. But if you do it too soon, even if it looks like it's dry after 2 hours, you end up wiping a lot of it out. And I knew I was going to beat this vehicle up a lot, so I wanted to make sure that at the end, the panel line, I didn't just waste my time. So make that plan. The more you're going to weather, the heavier of a wash and things like that you want. Same with streaking and everything else, streaking effects. So I ended up doing, again, 2 layers because I wanted to build that base of grime. And pin washes to me are just, or to everyone, sorry, are kind of just like this thing we have to do, right? It's going to make the details pop. But to me, it's more than just that. It has that capability, but real tanks don't, and vehicles for that matter, they don't have something that just makes them pop, right? It's dirt, it's grime, it's grease, it's everything that's kind of packed in there. So this is going to be our base for that. Now, this is the next morning. I'm just gently wiping it away. Take enamel thinner, moisten a brush, and again, depending on how heavy or light you want it, um, just be delicate, right? You don't need a ton of thinner. That thick brush will stay wet for long enough um, that you're not using your whole bottle of enamel thinner. But once you wipe it away, you have to apply it and wait overnight again, right? So we're just being careful with it. And again, really trying to keep it in the areas that in our head we know we're going to weather, decently heavily. So this is a new, call it a tool. It's a Q-tip, but this is Tamiya's like extra fine Q-tip with the point. Um, it's a ridiculous thing to buy because it's a Q-tip, but I'm very, very happy with it. It's not actually very absorbent, which is a good thing, especially for cleaning up some of these creases that we're doing right now, in those sandbags there. But it doesn't fray out all the cotton bud material and get caught on tools and pole guns and things like that. So very happy with that. And you can be slow, right? Once you wipe an area and you think, man, maybe I almost have it all, go on to another one, right? I try to work on multiple different areas, as you can see, because you have a lot of time with this product, like you know, hours. If you're hitting it the next morning, you have all day. So you don't need to complete this stage right now. Um, you really, I think you have 3 to 4 days, but then you'll need to use more thinner, things like that. So, and as always, we're gonna wipe it. Instead of trying to contain it, we're trying to wipe it over the vehicle just to give it. This is an area where panel washes can be, you know, much more than a panel line wash is. It's really a filter. If you ever use the filter products, you just wipe it into different areas, right? And it's going to leave some residue, um, and start to generate some actual texture. You'll see pretty soon here, we're going to generate a lot of texture with it in the hull here. So I'm just going to slather this up. The whole hull is just going to get covered in a thick coat of this. Same wash that we've been using this whole time. But I knew I was going to use pigments here, but I really wanted it to look, nice and caked on. So we needed a good base layer. Plus, the wheels don't have polycaps in this kit. I didn't have to attach them, but I just went ahead and did. So I needed something to make sure that gaps and areas that we wouldn't be able to access and whatnot, had something on it. So I'm not going light here. And again, you can kind of see that texture on the left side starting to take shape. I was actually very, very happy with the way that this worked. This worked. I mean, I didn't use really thinner to wipe it away. I kind of just dry brushed it the next day. I guess there's probably a little thinner left in the brush, but I didn't take any off. I just wiped it around, and I mean, it truly is a filter, right? It starts to change depending on how much you leave on the vehicle, but it really starts to change the actual color. So here we are, again, trying to brush downward. It's an uncomfortable area. Can't always do it, so brush up if you can, brush down if you can, and just make do, right? I'm building this kit for me, so if there's one or two sideways strokes, that's okay. Plus, we can just blast it with pigments at any point and cover up any mistakes. Um, so I think I said it before at some point in this series of videos. I had a kit or a pack from Ammo by Mig, and they make it just for desert vehicles. Which, if you're getting into modeling in general or weathering, really, those kits are fantastic. They do like a winter camouflage set, tracks and wheels, mud, all of them. I've pretty much got them all. For whatever reason, they don't all come with instructions. It's just a little one pager. I think 3 out of the 4 that I ended up buying all came with just a one pager. This is how you use all these products, which is awesome. Again, when you're new and you see all this stuff and you're like, oh, okay, what do I do with it? They're really, really great. So I wanted to use them all, but so onto the exhaust. We are using, I really, really like this product a lot. This is maybe my favorite rust wash. This is AK Interactive's, it's like an enamel pigment wash. So it gives some, I don't know if crackle is the right word for it, but it gives some texture that's kind of broken up. It looks a lot more random. So that's layer one. We'll come back to the exhaust, but for now, you can kind of notice, and I brush painted very lightly in some of them, but we're applying a track wash and sort of scary. T-Rex advises not to do heavy enamel products in your on your tracks, which we will test out. Spoiler alert, it works. But when you have workable tracks, you can't. It would take you days to paint inside those cracks. You'd have to bend every single track and swipe with your airbrush. And then, right as soon as you flex it back to normal, that paint's going to stick, and all of a sudden your tracks might not work. So, um, this was my solution, and it worked. It worked actually very well, which was just slather up the tracks and let that, fall into those grooves. And even before I did any other weathering, it worked. It worked very well. Next, wood wash. There's only two pieces of wood. There's a shovel and I think that's an axe. This is AK's wood wash, which again, it's a dark brown wash. These products are all the same, I'm pretty sure, at the end of the day, but I do really, really like this product for wood. I have I've tried different wood washes and different techniques that I've read and watched, and I don't know. This is seemingly the only one that really to me looks like wood at the end. And if you remember, I used the AK markers to paint the wood, which is like yellow, and I don't like it. So we had to use that there. So next we're gonna do streak and grime, which is my personal favorite part of weathering. And again, you don't have to use streak and grime. We did it a little bit with the panel wash. I know it didn't show all of it, but just wiping it around, wiping it down when you put it on the edges, right? Wipe it downward on the vertical panels. But with the streak and grime, we're going to draw the lines that we want on with this fine brush here. You'll see we use oil products at some point as well. For the enamel products, I think it's a better idea to draw the line that you want, at least somewhat. It will smear somewhat, but they don't travel the same as oil products. So get at least, like in this case, get like halfway down the panel line where you want it. And then again, let this sit. If you come back even in like an hour, if you want really light streaking effects, come back in an hour, right? If you want heavier streaking effects, and I did, wait until they're dry. At least a couple hours. Again, you can do it overnight if you want. I think, and then again here, using the streaking grime as a wash in different places. It's a similar color to what we had, but I tried to use all the different washes that I use on this vehicle in panel lines and things like that to try to spread all those colors around and blend the different things that we were using together. Plus, what will happen is when you wipe away some of your panel line wash and those bolts and stuff, and some of the small holes, you will get it perfect on some, you won't on others. So it's an opportunity to get a slightly different shade in there. And then I just realized I forgot the tracks in the top. So I'm pretty sure that the track that has the sandbags on it is supposed to be painted the same light brown color. I think I noticed that too late and then I didn't care. AKA the sandbag was already glued down on top of it. But I think it looks good the way it is. Bring some different color. So again, enamel thinner, and then I have this, kind of tiered brush. And if you notice, I'm starting at the bottom. Um, any instruction that I found always just was like wipe down, and you end up wiping the top away. And when you paint the wash on, it pools at the bottom. So you're going to have the most at the bottom. So um, obviously it's hard in some of these uncomfortable areas, but I'd always advise starting at the bottom, and then as you wipe down, work that brush upward. So then, as before, we're going to get some rust tones going. And first, we're going to use that in some of these panels in different areas here before we do any streaking rust or anything. And we'll get to the dust oil shortly. Um, there's a reason I want to bring it up, especially compared to this rust oil. And what I find, I really, really, really like these oil brushers. I keep telling myself I'm just going to use oils and nothing else. And then, I see the pigments glowing in the corner. But when you're wiping these away, unlike the enamel wash, if you wipe an oil down or, aside, like to the side, like you're going to wipe it off the vehicle, it's going to carry over everywhere that you swipe your brush. And you'll see I blot my brush off very frequently. It's going to stay on your brush. So you'll stain your whole vehicle doing that, which is a technique in itself. But really when you're working these oil washes, or if you want it to be a wash, really try to contain it. Get enough thinner that when you touch the oil, it should immediately hydrate, right? But make sure that you're containing it is the best way I can describe it. And keep that brush clean. All right, on to my, I'll say, favorite product. I just don't, watching this now that I've done it, the camera is much more forgiving. Maybe I was just being critical as I am of myself in my weathering job here, but I'm not, I don't know that I'm going to use this dust anymore, like ever. Um, you saw when I was using the rust oil, you wet it with enamel thinner, you're wiping it around, and you can see where it is, right? It's visible. You can see where it's flowing into. If you watch, when I put enamel thinner on the dust oil, it turns translucent. It's invisible. So you really have no way of knowing where it is if you've cleaned it all off. And it ended up being so heavy in some areas. I told myself going into this build, I was not going to use pigments. That was my plan. And the dust oil just was I just didn't like it. It was so heavy in areas that I was like, oh man, I don't know how else to fix this. But anyways, we can talk about that more another day. Right now we are doing some streaking rust effects. So this is an oil brusher, but my advice is use a brush. Um, the oil brusher, brush itself is good, but it's pretty thick for this kind of thing. And what you'll find, which is dissimilar to enamel products you can leave on there for a day, and if you put enough thinner, you'd wipe the whole thing off, even if it started to dry. With oils, after it sits, it feels like for a couple minutes. And again, the dust oil does it worse than any of the other ones that I've used, but it does stain a little bit. You'll get almost like like a watermark, like if you let water dry in your sunglasses, so like something like that. So I don't wait too long to wipe away the oil. I honestly, once I have it drawn into where I want it, is when I start wiping it. But I got this. This arrived in a box as I was weathering stuff I ordered. This is the rain mark effect. When I opened it up, because I was mad about the dust effects, I noticed the color that it was, and looks exactly like the dust, but it's an enamel product. So instead of testing it out, actually no, I think I did test it on the bottom of the tank, but I was going to say, you should test these things out, but I just went for it. We're going to cover the wheels in that, and then we're going to wipe it away, right? We don't want the wheels to be completely dusty, but um, we don't want them to be clean either, because we're going to really dirty these tracks up. So when you're using pigments, there is, I guess, three ways that you can get them to stick. One is with pigment fixer. The second is with thinner, like the enamel thinner. And then the third, which I'm doing here, is we're going to do a small run. I think it was like 10 or so that I do here. And while it's still wet, now this will make a mess of your brush. It'll make a mess of your workstation. You can do this in the model box, whatever. I don't listen to my own advice. I'm going to make a colossal mess. But as it's still wet, we're going to take those two different pigments I showed a second ago. It's the airfield dust and like North Africa dirt. Using two colors just brings more kind of tonal variation. And we're going to put them around randomly, right? Each one randomly. And then what we're going to do is, in some areas, we're going to put just one. In some areas, we'll put just another. And then in some areas, when you push them together, they actually blend and they become like a third color, right? And then having that dust wash underneath, I think really brought even like a fourth color in there. So I was very, very happy with the way the tracks turned out. I know it's heavy, it's a heavy weathering on them, but it's what I wanted. Never done a desert weathering job before, at least a good one. So I wanted to use all the products I got, you know, as I think we all probably do. So those wheels are still drying, that were on screen a second ago. But I think that's a really interesting thing. They never dried on that side. The other side they did. So, anyways, what we're gonna do here with that same rain mark effect is we're going to put that down, and then we're gonna start putting those same two pigments all around the vehicle. And again, making a colossal mess. And then we end up doing multiple stages. This is where things got away a little bit, but we'll get back to that in a second. Same process, just different products with the tracks here. Instead, at first we use that old rust. Now we're going to use like the standard rust from AK Interactive. And then I don't have, you know, any other rust pigment. So in the spirit of all these products are kind of exactly the same, we are going to use the track rust, which I've been doing pretty much all the time. I don't know if there's anyone in the world that would look at it and be like, hey, that's track rust on that exhaust, right? And then just trying to be careful. Pigments are a hard thing to be careful with, but there is the dried finished product. And we'll end up wiping away. Again, I'd let that dry for like a day or so, um, and overnight. I usually weather like first thing in the morning and then like at night. Try to give things enough time to, you know, fully harden and cure. Well, not cure, but somewhere in the middle there, dry and be in place. And so here we go. This is, you can see I've done pigments all over the vehicle. And now, again, after waiting, we're just taking, that's just a dry brush right now. You can use enamel products, like the thinner, which we do at some different stages. I don't show it here for the sake of time, but um, first dry brush your pigments off and kind of see what you're left with, because they will fall off. I'm not being really, I'm not brushing very hard here, but just be gentle, brush around the vehicle, because they will fall off. Anything that comes off like this will end up falling off once it's in place. And you can also blend them like a little bit if you get to them soon enough. Which I know knocking down your pigments takes away some of the texture, but it allows you to put another coat and kind of make it look like it's actually part of the paint, right? Like when our cars get dirty, when they get really dirty, I haven't washed my car in a while. It starts to become part of the paint. And then I still feel like it's cheating to use these AK markers, but we're cheating a little bit. It's just the gunmetal color, which is very bright, but I was just trying to see if we could get some that worn effect, where the tracks would touch the road. And then on to fuel stains. So I did a little research. These are the two, for sure, areas where the crew would refuel, on the bottom side of the tracks here. And then apparently there's one on the back too, but only on some. Anyways, what we are doing now is I've taken both the pigments, the same pigments this whole time, put them in a palette, mix them together, and then put a couple drops of pigment fixer in there. I didn't like how the top half of the lower hull was just that enamel color. I did really like that enamel color, but when I ended up going too heavy on the bottom with pigments, you end up having to keep correcting, which is why I kind of want to stop using pigments. They look amazing, but it's hard to just use a little bit. They kind of end up taking over. So we're just gonna brush that. We're trying to go really light and brush it in a downward, right? Just like a gravitational direction, right? Try to make it look like stuff is coming from the top and it's falling down, and that's where it's collecting. And as you can see, I ended up doing, I think 3 total layers of those fuel stains, and with the third layer being after this. Every time I put pigments on, I did a fresh fuel layer to try to get a little bit of, 3D quality to it and make it look like it actually soaked into the vehicle there. All right, and so here we are. This is our finished vehicle, which I'm finally happy enough with. Again, I had to keep going back and forth with the pigments. That dust wash color was bothering me, so I had to keep going back and forth, trying to cover it in different areas, um, while not going too heavy, which with pigments is hard. It looks pretty heavy in some areas, and then sometimes I look at it and it doesn't. But sometimes good enough is good enough. Um, first desert weathering, at least extensive one. So I think it looks good. It's definitely something completely different on my shelf. So we're gonna do another one next. I'm gonna do the Crusader, which I recently put that review up, but um, maybe try to tone it down a little bit. So here you can see the wheels on the left. They still look like the enamel thinner or pigment fixer or whatever is still drying. So that again, whatever it is, what it is. Um, Takeaways from this kit, this was a really nice kit to build. I expected it to be so as being a newer Tamiya kit, but couple weird things. I think I labeled them as floating. It was like floating construction when you're holding like two or three pieces in the air and you have to glue them together. Aside from that, though, the engineering is like amazing, right? Like you'd expect. There's a lot of little doodads and accessories. I do not like that there aren't polycaps. I guess because we have Lincoln length tracks, if that's going to be a thing going forward, I'm not a fan. We got a polycap for like the sprocket, but not the return roller. I guess it's not a return roller, but the back, the rear sprocket. Um, I don't know. It's just it's a really simple thing to keep in these kits that I feel like they should include. It makes it easy for all of us to paint and weather, but it is what it is. The decals in this kit are a little bit like daunting when you look at them. A little scary. The 215, they go on great. Could they be better? Maybe, but Tamiya gets a bad rap for having thick decals and everything like that, and they went on better than I expected. They didn't melt too much, and I put a lot of mark fit on them, but they really conform. There's no air bubbles, and there's no silvering kind of shine to them. So I guess to wrap it up, if you guys have made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. We will do, like I said, the Crusader next. We will do many more build videos. We'll do a little beginner series as well. But we're going to try not to use so many pigments. They look really good. They do. But it also maybe it makes you feel like, why did I even do the streaking effect? Why did I do the panel line wash, whatever? I think a lot of it showed through at the end here. But I don't know. Overall, happy with it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next episode.